Today I want to talk about my first experience with an orchestral library, the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover from Spitfire Audio. If you're not familiar with this is a pared down version of Spitfire's full BBC Symphony Orchestra library. The full library is like $1,000. They have a mid-tier version that's $500. This is $50. Or if you're willing to do a survey and then wait a couple weeks, you can get a copy for free from Spitfire's website. This is not sponsored or anything, but I think it's a cool deal you should know about. I'll put a link in the description. I've never worked with any real orchestral libraries before. The workflow is something kind of new to me. I'm kind of just picking it up and trying to figure it out. Also trying to figure out how to arrange for all these different instruments. It's definitely a new experience. If you know better than me, please, I'd love to learn. Comment below and tell me how I'm doing things wrong, because I'm sure I am. I'm going to show you the first thing I made with this library in the first few hours after downloading it. This is kind of a demo, kind of a review, kind of a talking about the experience and the process and my impressions working with this library and arranging for an orchestral library for the first time pretty much ever. So here's the session where I made my little song. First, I'll show you the plugin. This is what it looks like. Each of these is a different section and it's color-coded into larger groups. So the strings are all green. We have violin 1 and 2, viola, cello, bass, woodwinds are blue, bassoon, clarinet, oboe, flute, piccolo. Red is brass. We have a horn section, that's French horns, tuba, bass trombone, trumpets. And what I did in this session is I made a different track for each of those, and I colored it the same as it is in the plugin, so it'd be relatively easy to navigate. I'll just play you this little thing I have so you can hear what it sounds like. I definitely don't claim to be an orchestral arranger, but you can at least hear the sound quality. There you go. So let me show you a little bit more in detail about how this works and how I put this together. I started with the strings. I came up with some chords on my keyboard and essentially broke those chords down to give each instrument in the string section a specific note to follow and spread these chords out over the whole range of the string section to make them sound nice and big. So two things that I found are really important to getting good sounds are this dynamic slider and the different articulations. I'll just show you quickly some of the different articulations on this violin 1 part. This is all using the long articulation. These long held out notes. They also have a staccato one. Pizzicato, and tremolo. The full version of this has a lot more articulations, which I think helps even get more realistic. There's some that I feel like I'm missing even working on this right now, and especially on some of these faster parts, this long articulation sounds a little off. It's not bad, but it feels like one note stops weirdly and then another one starts. The full version has an articulation called legato, which is I think what I'd be looking for that. But again, that's $500, and for $50, this is really great. Once I had the strings, I added some horns. There's a melody in the trumpet. There's a counter melody in the French horn. And the trombone, bass trombone, and tuba are playing mostly root notes, just holding down the foundation. So I'll show you the brass now added to the strings. Something really important on stuff like this French horn line. I'll solo that. I was writing this dynamics control, and I linked that to a controller on my MIDI controller. It's super easy. You just right-click it, click Learn MIDI CC, and then move the control you want to control it. And this essentially controls, it's not really the same as volume because it's how it's being played. Because a wind instrument, unlike something like a piano or guitar, you play it once, then it sustains until it's done. You can blow more or less air as you're holding a note to change the dynamics. So this is how you work that. And I tried to bring it up on these lines where I wanted the French horn to poke through, and then I brought it down more when it's playing more background stuff in an attempt to get lines that I want to be heard out front and then out of the way for other things. Like when this trumpet melody happens up here, it's louder, and I bring the French horn down. I think I could have gone into more detail with this, especially in the strings, to make sure everything was kind of fitting into its right place. But it's definitely a different workflow than I'm used to and will require some learning. Next, I brought in woodwinds. The clarinets and bassoon in this are pretty much just playing chords, holding down a pad. And I have flute, oboe, and piccolo playing this counter melody. I did the same thing you can see here with the dynamics automation, trying to bring out certain lines in the flute, bring it down when it's playing more background held notes. I have the piccolo harmonizing with the flute in this, and the oboe playing an octave below it to bring certain emphasis to different lines. Again, the articulations are a little bit limited in this discovery version. We just have long and staccato. I know there's a lot more in the full version. And again, I could probably do even more with switching between these on the fly for even single notes in certain lines to try and make the articulation more natural or more emphasized in specific ways. One part where I did that was at the very end in the brass. We have this section. Where I made separate tracks for the long and the short articulations. So this is long, this is set up the same, but on the staccato. And the reason I did that is because I found that the dynamics had to be set up in sort of a different way to get it to feel like these were the same volume as these. And it was easier to set that up on a different track rather than trying to automate everything every time I wanted to play a note staccato. I also have certain notes playing both long and short, which gives a nice attack from the short note and then has the long sustain of the long notes, especially on this last held note. Here it is with just the long articulation. Here it is with the short one layered in. And when you do that across the entire brass section, which is doing the same thing, I really enjoy how splatty the low brass sounds on those staccato articulations. That's really cool. I also put in some percussion. We have some concert bass drum and snare drum. And of course, the obligatory timpani thing. I really like this ending section. It's my favorite part of this. If I were to do this again, I would probably put more interesting articulations and percussions in the whole thing, because this ended up sounding by far the most interesting to me. So the next thing I do with this, I'll probably make that more of a focus.